The chamber of the Galactic Council was a ring of cold stone and bright light. It hung in the black between stars, a station older than half the empires that sent envoys here. Its floor was a circle of silver plates. Its roof was a dome of glass that looked out at a giant blue star. The delegates sat in high seats that rose like teeth, each seat marked with the crest of a ruling species. They spoke in many tongues, through translators that hummed like small bees. The whole chamber shook with fear. They had a reason. On the central platform stood the Dreth. 6 of them, tall, armored. Their armor was dark iron with glowing red seams. Their eyes were like knives in shadow. A banner hung behind them, a black sun eating a white world. They had come with terms, not with friendship. They had come with the same terms they had given 100 worlds before: kneel or burn. The session began with the sound of a metal staff on stone. "Order," said the speaker of the council. The speaker was of the Palari, a thin avian being. With a throat of silver feathers, his voice was soft but steady. "By emergency writ, the council receives the Dreth, and the worlds of our union answer. The first delegation, the Lix Syndic." The Lix were a reptilian race with long, folding hands. Their emissary stepped out and fell to one knee. He did not look at the Dreth. He kept his eyes on the floor. He presented a data crystal with both hands. "We accept vassalage," the Lix emissary said. "We ask to keep our inner moons in our shrines. We offer tribute." There was a murmur. The Dreth commander, whose name would be spoken in 100 nightmares, General Varg, Tell, did not move. He took the crystal. He did not bow. He did not speak thanks. He gave it to an aide. The second delegation came. The third. The 10th. The same acts, the same words. Knees on stone. Crystals given. Worlds traded for mercy. The air grew heavy with the smell of fear. It smelled like old metal and cold rain. A young clerk from the Riverworld Neris stood near the back, holding a tray of new crystals. His hands trembled. He had never seen a surrender. Now he had seen 10. He whispered to the senior clerk beside him. "Will any world refuse?" The senior clerk shook his head. "Not today." The Dreth watched. They did not gloat. They did not need to gloat. Their fleets were the gloating. "The seed of Auric," cried the speaker. A pale species with stone skin came forward. The Auria king bent both knees. The silver dome caught the light of the star and poured it down on his bowed head. He held his crystal up with shaking arms. It went on. Catalogue of fear. Finally a hush fell. There was only one crest, still dark, a blue circle with a white line through it. The old symbol of oceans and horizons, the crest of Earth. The speaker swallowed. "The seed of Earth," he said. His voice went thin. The United Human Delegation. Nothing moved. Delegates turned in their seats. Eyes flicked and quivered. Some whispered, some smiled, a small, cruel smile, as if they knew how this would end. Human worlds were young, they thought, loud and bold, but young. The Dreth had come for giants and bent them. What was a young race to that? General Varg. Tell lifted his chin. The light cut across the edge of his helm. "Call them again," he said. The speaker's silver throat fluttered. "The seed of Earth," he repeated. "Present yourself to the council. Present yourself to the Dreth." Still nothing. Then the doors at the far end slid open. A single figure entered. She wore no armor, no blade, no crown. Only a dark field jacket, a line of rank on the collar, a small silver badge over the heart. Her hair was tied back. Her eyes were steady. She walked as if the floor was hers. A soft wave of voices went around the room. "A lone officer? Where? Is their ambassador? Where is their surrender crystal?" The clerk from Naruz felt his mouth go dry. He had read about humans. He had seen feeds, fast hands, quick speech, laughter that hit like a drum. He had never seen one with his own eyes. He thought she looked, he could not find the word. Not fearless, not foolish, centered, as if she carried a quiet weight that kept her. Steady in any wind, she reached the center plate and stopped. She looked up at the Dreth. then at the ring of high seats, then at the star beyond the dome. The speaker cleared his throat. "State your name and authority," he said. "Let it be entered into record." "Commander Elara Stone," the human said. Her voice was even, carried. "Earth Defense Fleet, acting envoy by urgent writ from the United Earth Assembly. You come alone?" General Vargtel asked. "I come enough," she said. A chuckle here, a hiss there, a ripple. The Dreth aide made a note on a slate. Vargtel did not smile. "You know why we are here," the general said. "Your species is young. You have expanded without leave. You have built weapons beyond your measure. You have given hope to slaves who must not hope. You will kneel as these worlds have. You will give ships and ore and bodies. You will take our coin. You will send your best children to our academies to learn the rules of the sky. Or your world will burn until your seas are steam and your cities are powder and your name is gone from the map of stars." The words fell like stones. The chamber listened to the echo. Elara Stone listened too. Her face did not change. "You speak of rules," she said. "You speak of maps. I will speak of something simpler. The ground where a person stands. The line a person draws. The spine a person has. That is what I bring." "You bring no army, Varg," Tel said. "You bring no tribute." Across the seats, a dozen species leaned forward. The Lick's emissary watched with a sad, almost hopeful look. The Oriat king lifted his head a touch. The Elara small, soft creatures, with glass-like skin, hid their eyes behind their hands. Elara's gaze moved slowly around the ring. "You all knelt," she said, not cruelly, not loud, but with a clear sadness. "I know why. You have families. You have winds and rivers, and small lights over doors. You did not want to lose them. You did not want to watch your sons rise over ashes. I do not judge you. All of us are afraid. Fear is human. Fear is Licks. Fear is Auric. Fear is in the bone of every species that ever had a mother." A murmur. The translators hummed. The words were simple but heavy. The clerk from Neris realized he was standing straighter. Elara looked back at the Dreth. "But you ask for something I cannot give." Vargtel tilted his head. "Kneel," he said, "and live, stand, and die. It is not complex. It is very simple," Elara said. "Humans do not kneel." Her voice did not rise, did not need to. The whole room heard it. The phrase hit the air like a clear metal note and kept ringing. Silence. Fell so cleanly that the hum of the dome light sounded loud. In the fourth seat, a spindery delegate dropped his stylus and did not bend to pick it up. In the back ring, the junior clerk realized he was holding his breath. The speaker's feathers trembled. "Commander," he said softly, "we record your statement, but the council wishes, the council urges a different course. You cannot win alone. We saw the flotillas burn to Tashgate. We saw the Nebra spires crack." "The Dreth are not gods," Elara said. "They are only power with a flag on it. Power falls. Flags change. What lasts is what a person decides to be. My people made our choice long ago. We learned to stand on broken ground. We learned to stand in storms. We stand now." A slow, almost desperate murmur stirred and rose. Delegates looked at one another. It is a strange thing to watch someone refuse the thing you feared you had no choice but to accept. It makes your own bones itch with old pride. General Vargtel raised one heavy hand. The chamber hushed. "Enough words," he said. "Your species will kneel because we will cut you until you do." He stepped forward on the platform. His armor clicked softly. His voice grew colder. "We brought a demonstration for councils such as this, where speech runs like water. We will show you the cost of defiance. We have placed a ship in orbit above a human colony. The colony is called," he glanced at his aide. "Mist Harbor," the aide said. "Mist Harbor," the general repeated. "A world of 10,000. A fishing moon. Modest. Nothing strategic, but human. In this moment, we will." Elara lifted her hand. "Stop," she said, quiet and sharp. The general's jaw flexed. You do not give orders here. I am not giving you an order, Elara said. I am giving you a chance to save face. A faint, surprised sound went through the ring. The Aurea King almost smiled. Elara reached into the pocket of her field jacket. Several Dreth guards tensed. She pulled out a small black cube and placed it on the floor. It flashed once and threw up a thin blue image in the air. It was Mist Harbor, the little green sea, the round port town, like a coin on the bay. A Dreth cruiser hung over it, hot like a coal. The council stared. Elara's voice stayed steady. Check your timestamps, she said. This feed is live. The Dreth aide frowned and tapped his slate. Numbers scrolled, then froze. He looked up slowly. It is live, he said. General Vargtel did not look at his aide. This is a trick, he said. Elara's lips moved into something that wasn't quite a smile. You will think what you must. But your cruiser's not over our colony anymore. The blue image wavered. The Dreth cruiser on the feed blinked one sand was gone. In its place, the sky over Mist Harbor was clear. The sea was calm. Fishing boats slid across a bright path of sun. Confusion rippled. Some delegates stood. Some cried out. The Lick's emissary covered his mouth with both scaled hands. General Vargtel turned his head at last, slow as a door of stone. How, he said, each letter heavy. Did you do that? Elara did not answer. She turned off the cube. She slid it back into her pocket. She did not gloat. She did not bow. Her face was tired now. Soft lines had formed beside her eyes. She looked more human than ever, and that seemed to make her more dangerous. We are not here to trade tricks, she said. We are here to set a line. Leave Earth alone. Leave our colonies alone. Leave the worlds that long for freedom alone. Or come and find out how far we will go. A delegate in gold robes rose from the seventh seat. This is madness, she said. You speak of war as if it is a riddle you can solve with clever hands. So Dreth will bring 1,000 ships, and another 1,000. You cannot move all their knives at once. Elara looked at her kindly. No, she said, but we can break the wrist that holds them. A soft, shocked laugh slipped from the back benches. The speaker tapped his staff. Commander Stone, he said, voice shaking. The council cannot sanction the council. Does not need to, Elara said, and she bowed her head to him, respectful, almost gentle. I ask you only to remember what you are for. You were built to hold many voices in the same room. Today you can hold this one too. General Vargtel's voice was ice. You stole a ship, he said. Or you bribed a captain. Or you bribed a council official to fake this feed. It does not matter. Your signal today is arrogance. Arrogance is paid for in the blood of your poor. We will collect the debt. He lifted his arm and spoke in his own harsh language. The translator did not follow. The Dreth guards stepped forward. Their boots hit the metal in a steady drum. The message was clear. The time for talk was done. Two Elari in the fifth seat flinched. The clerk from Neris felt his heart hammer. He remembered the day the Dreth came to his river, long ago, and took the ferries. He remembered not lifting his eyes. He remembered the taste of silt when he bowed. Elara did not move. Her hands hung at her sides. She watched the guards, as one might watch a coming wave. The Lick's emissary whispered, She will be taken. But Elara's foot shifted. It was a small movement, a pivot, not a fighter's lunge, a stance. She had chosen where to put her weight. She had decided where she would be in this next moment, no matter what happened. Commander, the speaker, said urgently, Do not escalate. I am not escalating, Elara said softly. I am standing. The first Dreth guard reached the edge of her plate. He lifted his gauntlet to seize her shoulder. All the lights in the dome flickered. Single tone slid through the air. It was the tone of a high-band military link. It was the sound fleets use when they whisper through noise. The translators did not know what to do with it. It made every hair on every species stand up. A second tone followed, then 3 short pulses, then silence. Elara turned her head slightly, as if listening to a private song. Vargtel paused. Knew that code. It was the pattern used when a fleet had arrived in system. Not his fleet. His fleet was already here. He spoke low to his aide. The aide's hands flew across the slate. His eyes widened. "General," the aide breathed. "A human flotilla just translated near the station. 20 ships." He licked his lips. "The hulls are hidden. The tags do not read." "They are." "I cannot." The general did not let him finish. He stared at Elara. She stared back. The whole room could feel the shape of something in the dark beyond the station. It was like sensing a storm behind a hill. Could not see it, but your bones knew. "You brought war to the council," Varg Tell said. "I brought witnesses," Elara said, "to what happens when a bully meets a spine. Do not point your guns at this hall. Not touch another world for an hour. Let the galaxy watch you choose. The council will record it. Every world will see." For a long moment, nothing moved. It was a balance on a knife's edge, a jaw tight enough to break teeth, a star that seemed to hold its breath. Then Varg Tell lowered his hand. "Take her," said. The guards moved again. The lights flickered. Again, this time, the central display of the chamber came alive by itself. No clerk had touched it. No request had been filed. The feed bled through the sanctioned channels as if the station had decided it wished to see. It showed the black beyond the glass dome, showed 20 silhouettes sliding into the blue light of the star. They were not large ships. They were lean. Their hulls swallowed light instead of shining. Their drives did not roar. They hummed. Like held breath, human ships, a wave ran through the council. And it was not fear. It was not hope. It was something like waking up and remembering a word you had loved as a child. A word like stand. One of the human ships rolled and flashed a signal. It was old, older than space. It was a simple white line across a blue circle. A horizon. The guards stopped without meaning to stop. The general's jaw worked. "Commander Stone," the speaker whispered, "if you planned violence, we planned to be seen," Elara said. "That is all." The feed shifted, showed the Dreth pickets outside the station. Patrol craft, gun sleds. Pilots did what they were trained to do. They targeted the newcomers, armed. The human ships did not fire. They did not flee. They moved together like a school of fish. They slid through the Dreth formation. They did not touch. But when they passed, the Dreth targets blinked and died on 3 cockpits. Then 6. Then all. The Dreth gunners stared at blank screens. They smacked panels. They shouted. Their ships still moved. Their weapons still worked. But their targeting eyes were blind. Someone had thrown paint over them. Invisible paint. Clever paint. Inside the council, 100 chests exhaled at once. Elara did not smile. "You see," she said, "we do not need to kneel to live. We need only to be stubborn and learn fast. We have done both." General Varg Tell looked at her. For a long time, in that look, were old wars. In that look were his own teachers, his own hard roads, his own pride. He was not a fool. He was not a coward. He was something worse for an empire that built itself on fear. He was a thinker. "You bought a day," he said at last. "You bought a story to tell frightened species in dark halls." He turned his head and spoke in the harsh tongue again. The guards took one step back. Only one. "Here is ours," he said, facing the room. "The Dreth do not forget insults. We do not accept limits. We will not let a young race make a stage of us and feel tall. You have made your line. Have said your phrase? The recording is complete. Let the galaxy hear our answer." He lifted his arm. He did not shout. He did not need to. By decree of the High War Throne, General Varg Tell said, Earth will be erased. The words were so calm that some in the room did not understand them at first. Then the meaning hit like cold water. The Elara cried out. The Lick's emissary closed his eyes. The Aureate King gripped the edge of his seat until the stone cracked under his fingers. The speaker's staff clattered to the floor. Elara Stone did not move. She did not gasp. She did not bargain. She stood on the place she had chosen, and her voice, when it came, was almost gentle. "We heard you," she said. Varg Tell's eyes flicked to the glass dome. "Record this, too," he said. "We will not come for your council today. We'll not fire on this old hall. We honor age. Honor forms. But we will come for Earth. We will come with stars worth of fire. We will show the meaning of kneel to those who think the word is only a sound. Prepare your last speeches, humans. Prepare your last songs." He turned. The Dreth stepped away as one. The black sun banner rippled once in the conditioned air. The chamber erupted. Some shouted for guards. Some shouted for votes. Some shouted for prayers. Elara stood in the middle of the ring, small and steady. The blue star shone on her hair. She put her hand back in her pocket and touched the little black cube, as if touching a friend. Then she lifted her eyes to the feed where the 20 human ships held their place like thin knives in light. She spoke. Not to the council, not to the Dreth, but to the ships that could hear her, and to the billions behind them who could not. Yet, but would soon. "Send it," she said. The junior clerk from Naris did not know what that meant. He only knew that whatever it was, it would not be a plea. A second later, the station's public channel flashed with a message packet tagged for all worlds. It carried 3 things: the video of kneeling and not kneeling, the short, clear sentence, spoken by a single, unarmed human, and the Dreth vow that followed it. The packet's header was a phrase in a dozen tongues. It said, "We stand." The echo of it was still moving when the council's alarms began to sing. The Dreth flotillas were turning. The first vectors plodded toward the inner systems, toward a blue world under a warm sun. The star beyond the dome burned on, as the chamber's lights steadied. The speaker found his staff and lifted it with a shaking hand. "This session," he said, though no one was listening, "is adjourned." Elara Stone looked once more at the empty air where the Dreth had stood. She did not pray. She counted. She counted the hours they had left. She counted the ships they could meet. She counted the worlds that might find their spines. Her mouth formed the words that had already gone out to the dark. Humans do not kneel. And with the vow to erase Earth hanging like a blade over the galaxy, she turned and walked out of the chamber. Into a war that would try to teach her how a band would learn, instead how a human stands. The sky over Mars was wrong, it should have been dust red and calm, a quiet canvas for the little lights of human stations in orbit. Instead, it burned with scars of fire. Great black ships slid out of the void, their hulls like jagged mountains of iron. They blotted out the stars, one by one, until night itself seemed to lean closer. The Dreth invasion fleet had arrived. Every screen on every colony world screamed the same warning. It's enemy fleet in system. Take shelter. Sirens howled in domes and tunnels. Children clutched parents. Engineers dropped tools. Soldiers ran to stations they had only trained in but never expected to fight from. The war had come faster than anyone dreamed. In the command dome of Mars' high orbit, Admiral Jonas Cade stood. At the center table, his uniform was unadorned. No ceremonial silver, no bright patches. Just the dark blue of Earth's defense fleet, shoulders heavy with duty. His hair was iron gray, his jaw was square stone. His voice, when it came, was low, but it cut the chaos like a blade. Report. The holly table spun up. Blue lines of human ships. Red icons of Dreth. The red outnumbered the blue 10-1. The Dreth ships were larger, their power readings brighter, their weapons heavier. "They're forming a wedge," said Commander Elara Vance, Cade's second-in-command. Her face was pale, but her eyes sharp. "They'll split our defense net in half before we can regroup." "They expect us to stand in rows and be broken," Cade said. His fingers tapped the rim of the table once. "But we are not rows. We are not statues." He looked around the dome. Dozens of officers, analysts, pilots, all frozen between fear and waiting. His voice dropped. "Humans don't kneel. Remember that? Not in halls. It's not in war. For a heartbeat. Silence. Of resolve." Screens flickered brighter. Hands moved faster. Orders snapped down the chain. The Dreth opened fire. The first salvo was a wave of searing plasma bolts. They cut through the dark like lances of a sun torn loose. Shields on the outer defense ships flared blue, then shattered. A destroyer spun away, its hull cracked open like fruit. Men and women inside screamed their last in silence, flames rushing out into space. Panic could have followed. But Admiral Cade's voice filled every channel. Scatter formation. Break them apart. Make them chase us. The human ships moved. In straight lines, not in heavy ranks, but in swarms. Frigates darted like knives between rocks. Fighters spilled from bays like hornets from a hive. Drones, small and silent, launched by the thousands. Filling space with a storm of false signals, the Dreth were built for blunt force. Their ships moved in steady grids, relying on size and armor to crush resistance. They had broken empires. This way, they expected humanity to do the same. Kneel in the form of battle, neat and orderly, easy to crush. But the swarm did not kneel, did bit. A dozen Dreth gunners roared in frustration as their targeting screens fuzzed with false echoes. Some fired blindly, wasting bolts on empty shadows. Then the shadows bit back. Human fighters darted close, loosing torpedoes at point-blank range. Dreth corvette split apart, its engines erupting in white flame. The Council chamber's feeds carried the images live. Across the galaxy, species that had already bowed watched wide-eyed. Small hands gripped larger ones. Old soldiers who had surrendered decades ago leaned closer to screens. They had seen empires fall, but they had never seen anyone fight like this. Admiral Commander Vance said sharply, "Their heavy cruiser is breaking through. If it fires, the orbital ring will be glass." Cadi's jaw tightened. He knew what that meant. Millions lived in the Mars domes. The Dreth would turn them into ash just to prove a point. He pressed a control. A small holla rose above the table. The Vanguard Squadron, humans' most advanced warships built in secret and kept hidden for this very day. They were lean, dark, their hulls coated in gravity-masking alloys stolen from half a dozen black projects. Cade gave the order. Release the Vanguard. Air. In the shadow of Phobos, Mars's moon, the hidden fleet stirred. 20 ships slipped free of camouflage nets. Engines flared blue. They surged forward like wolves unleashed. Their appearance shocked even human commanders. On the field, the Vanguard had been rumor, whispered in halls and bunkers, doubted by many. Now the rumor bared its teeth. The Dreth cruiser locked its main cannon on Mars. Target acquired, said a Dreth gunner. But the words froze in his throat as 3 Vanguard ships blinked into position directly beneath the cruiser. They fired as one. Lances of compressed plasma knifed upward, cutting through the cruiser's belly. Great cannon swelled with unstable energy, then tore itself apart in a blinding explosion. The shockwave rippled through space. Human ships rode it like a wave, darting into gaps it opened. For a brief, impossible moment, the humans were not prey. They were hunters. On the Dreth flagship, General Varg Tell watched the battle unfold with a face carved from stone. His officers shifted nervously around him. "They fight like vermin," one hissed. "Scatter and bite. They should break." "They will break, Varg," Tell said. His voice was cold iron, "but not before they bleed us. This is why they must be erased." Another officer dared to whisper, "They remind me of the stories, General. The first age of war, when small races fought with fire in their teeth." Varg. Tell turned his eyes on him. The officer said no more. Still, even Varg Tell could not deny what he saw. Humans had drawn first blood, and the galaxy was watching, but victory was not in the air yet. For every Dreth ship that fell, 2 more surged forward. Their weapons were heavier, their armor thicker. A human destroyer was torn apart, its pieces scattering across the void like sparks. Fighters were swatted from the sky by great beams. On Mars below, cities shook with each tremor from above. Fire. Old miners whispered prayers in airlocks. Families huddled together in tunnels, listening to the thunder of war beyond their world. "Admiral," Commander Vance said again, "we can't hold forever." Cade knew she was right. He also knew they had no choice. "Then we buy time," he said. Every minute we live is another minute Earth readies its cannon. Another minute our people believe they can stand. He opened the channel wide. All ships. All soldiers. His voice carried like steel. They want us to bow. They want our children to grow up under their flag. You all saw what Commander Stone told them. Humans do not kneel. Now we prove it. A roar of voices answered across. The nets, some were steady, some were breaking. All were human. The battle raged on. Hours stretched like days. Losses mounted on both sides. Then, at the heart of the Dreth Wedge, something impossible happened. A single Dreth warship bigger than a mountain, armored like 10 cities, erupted from the inside. Not from torpedoes, not from beams. From within, explosions tore through its core. Its lights went dead. Its engines sputtered and died. The giant cracked open like a fruit and drifted dark. Gasps filled the council feeds. On the flagship, Argtel rose to his feet. "What?" he snarled. "How?" On the human command dome, Admiral Cade clenched his fists. He knew, somehow human. Operatives had reached inside that ship. Somehow, they had planted fire in its bones. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. The Dreth, unshakable conquerors, had been wounded by a species they had dismissed as young, fragile, weak, general. Vargtel's voice thundered across his fleet. Erase them. Strip their bones from their world. Let none survive to whisper this day. Dreth ships shifted, their formation now pure fury. They would not stop until Mars was cinders. In the command dome, Admiral Cade gripped the table. His face was grim, but in his eyes burned a spark that no fear could kill. "Let them come," he said softly. "We will make them remember." The screens flickered with fire. Mars trembled. Humanity braced itself. The first strike had begun, and the galaxy for the first time in centuries dared to wonder if the Dreth could bleed. The void between Mars and Earth looked empty. It was not. It held quiet teeth. For hours after the first great clash above Mars, wreckage drifted like black snow. Panels spun. Frozen vapor glittered like dust. Emergency beacons blinked their small red eyes. The Dreth held formation, their wedge broken, but not gone. They were still many. They were still strong. Their engines glowed like furnaces in a mine. Inside the human command dome, Admiral Jonas Cade stood with hands on the rail and listened to the silence between calls. The silence was the truth. The calls were only the noise that tried to cover it. "We lost the Descartes," Commander Elara Vance reported softly, "but her crew got out. Escape pods on Vector Green." "Tag in tow," Cade said. His voice stayed steady. "Nobody drifts alone." A tech across the pit raised a hand. "Admiral, we're getting phantom echoes all through Sector Kappa." "Dreth decoys?" Vance asked. The tech shook her head. "No, sir. They look like gaps, not ghosts. Like something is taking weight out of the gravity mesh." Cade glanced at the chrono. Line of tension at his mouth eased half a line. "Right on time," he said. "Open a quiet channel." "Burst tight beam," Vance blinked. She understood. She looked brighter than she had in hours. To them, Cade said. She tapped out the code. The dome's lights hummed. The blue star beyond the station's glass threw a thin spear of light across the table. Cade put his voice into the beam. "Vanguard 2, Vanguard 6, Vanguard 8, he said, "calm as dawn, you are free to hunt." There was no reply. There was not supposed to be. The beam closed again. Silence returned. Out in the reclittered dark, 3 shadows opened inside deeper shadow. They were not large, were not proud in the way of big ships that want to be seen. Their hulls swallowed starlight like ink. Their heat signatures bled thin and cool into the background. They bent the small curls of gravity that engines make and hid inside the curves. They were human stealth ships, gravity-masked, noise-starved, built in caves under mountains and sealed with oaths. The rumor that had cut the Dreth formation in Part 2 had more than teeth. It had a patient smile. They had names in the registry. The registry was wrong on purpose. On their own decks, written small on bulkheads by hands that wanted to remember, They had the names that mattered: Sable, Low Sun, Eavesdrop. The first 5 minutes of their hunt did not look like war. They looked like nothing. That was the point. Sable slid toward a Dreth Picket destroyer. The destroyer's guns always looked outward. Predators look at the field. They do not expect teeth inside their own mouth. The Dreth crew ran drills and checked coolant and argued about rations in low voices. They had fought at Mars and lived. They thought about sleep. No one thought about the small piece of night that had glued itself to their spine. On Sable's bridge, Captain Anna, Rutledge, Quiet Woman, Slow Smile, watched a line of figures crawl down the side of the destroyer in a thin blue outline that only her instruments could see. They were human boarders in cold suits. Their packs had little spiders that bit holes and drank heat. The boarders moved like patient ants. Everything that could make a sound had been replaced by something that made a whisper instead. On an open channel between the boarders, a voice said, "We are in the shadow." Another voice replied, "Stay small. Breathe small. Be a mistake that never happened." On the Dreth destroyer, a maintenance chief frowned at a status bar that flickered once and then sat still. He made a note to check it after shift. He did not make it to the end of his shift. A hatch clicked. The sound was smaller than a finger on paper. 4 boarders slid into a crawl space behind a bulkhead. A thin worm of code slid in with them, through a port that was not supposed to exist. It was an old port, left open by a builder who had copied a line from a line from a line and never thought about enemies who would fit through small gaps. In the crawl space, the lead boarder pressed her helmet to the ship's bones and counted the heartbeats of engines. She had counted so many engines lately that she could tell what kind of drive a ship had from the rhythm, the way a farmer knows rain by the sound on the roof. She put a small device on a cable and tapped a code with 2 teeth. Far away on the human ship Eavesdrop, a tech saw a ripple of green cross her screen. She said nothing, but her hand tightened on the edge of the console. The ripple meant the destroyer's internal network had taken a small human seed. The seed would grow into a tree of small choices that would all go wrong for the Dreth. Back in the main battle grid, other human ships turned, fired, ran, flashed, died. They kept the Dreth eyes looking outward. In the Council's feeds, species saw human courage and cried out at each flare of loss, each impossible strike. They did not see the boarders counting engine heartbeats in the dark. War likes to be watched where it is bright. Admiral Cade did not watch the bright. His eyes moved between the main grid and 3 small boxes of numbers that would look like nonsense to anyone else. One box showed small regular dips in a gravity read. Another showed burst quiet acknowledges that were not messages, but patterns of absence and expected noise. The third showed a slow spread of latency growth, a phrase that meant enemy commands were taking longer and longer to land. He said nothing. But under the table where no one could see it, his hand eased into a fist, and then let go, in the Council's ring. The small, glass-skinned Elara sat huddled together on their seat. Their world had bowed in the first hour of the Dreth raids, years ago. They made music for the conquerors now. They built tiny, delicate machines for their sick. They lived. That was all. 2 Elara clutched each other and watched the feed of the Mars fight. The first Tane had eyes that always looked down. The second Mary had eyes that wanted to look up, and always made Tyon scold. "Don't," Tyon whispered. "Hope hurts. It is a knife with a silk handle." Mary's hands trembled. "Listen," she said. "To what?" "To the silence between the shots. It is not empty. It is planned." Her words were simple, but they laid a small warmth under Tayon's ribs. He had not felt that warmth in a long time. It scared him, but he did not crush it, held it carefully, as if it might be a fragile light that would help him see a step that had been missing from the stairs. Around the ring, others felt it too. The Lix emissary's hand stopped shaking. The Aurea King sat straighter on cracked stone. Even the Speaker of the Council, with his silver throat and broken voice, held a little firmer to his staff. On the Dreth flagship, Vargtel saw it and hated it. Hope in enemies was a sickness he had learned to kill early. He would cut it now. "Bring the next line forward," he ordered. "Crush their center. If they run, we run them down. If they hide, we light the dark." asked. His navigator bent to his work and paused. The order had not reached the forward line. He tried again. He raised the signal's power. He widened the beam. He cursed in a tongue the translators refused to use. "General," the comms officer said carefully, "there is latency on our internal net." "Fix it. I am trying." The officer tried again. His board showed green. His board lied. The order reached the forward line 8 seconds late. In war, 8 seconds is not delay. It is a blade. In that small window, 3 human frigates slid like knives through a space that had not looked like a doorway until it opened. They loosed torpedoes at the joints of a Dreth cruiser's armor. The torpedoes were small. They were shaped charges aimed not at bulk, but at bones. The cruiser flinched. It did not die. But it stopped moving for 9 seconds to fix the hurt. 9 seconds is a battlefield. Human fighters swarmed the cruiser's midline. They did not try to cut through. They stuck 100 small claws into its hide and pulled at once. The armor did not rip. But the scream of stress in the plates shook the ship and made its gunners miss. The Council saw the bright. The Dreth felt the subtle. Argtel ground his teeth. "Find their ghosts," he hissed. "I want every black hole on my table." His techs lit the space with sweeps. The sweeps came back with normal noise and 3 small nothings in the noise. The techs did not have names for nothings that were shapes. They marked them as anomalies and moved on. On Low Sun, the engineer, Timau, grinned at his cone of unlight on the board and patted the gravity mask generator like a friend. "Hold together, old thief," he whispered. "Steal me another minute." In Part 2, the galaxy saw a Dreth giant die from the inside. In Part 3, the galaxy learned there was a name for the hands that planted the fire. Humans called them the Ghost Division. They were not many, were not on lists. They moved in small teams, 4, 6, sometimes 8. They had learned a language of vents, gears, codes, overheard curses, tired eyes. They did not fight like duelists. They fought like water, like sand, like time. They went where pride left cracks. A ghost team crawled through the guts of a Dreth communications barge now. The barge was the quiet heart of the enemy grid. It listened to orders from the flagship and whispered them to the line. If the whisper stuttered, the line faltered. If the line faltered, ships died. The team leader, Holoquin, moved her gloved hand over a panel and felt the thrum behind it. She felt a slow beat that told her this unit controlled packet timing. She felt a fast one that told her a coolant pump was working too hard. She smiled inside her helmet. A machine trying too hard is a door that wants to open. 3 minutes, she breathed. Her second IVO set a seed node into a junction like a pearl in a shell. It clicked once. It began to sing a song too quiet for ears but loud for code. The song told the barge a story, that the fleet was slightly farther from itself than it was. Distances grew by meters in the maps, then tens of meters, then hundreds. Not enough to be obvious. Enough to make bolts miss and orders lag. A Dreth tech on the barge frowned. His board showed green. His gut felt yellow. He told his chief. The chief told him to sleep later and drink now. He swallowed dry and did as he was told. The human song kept singing. The Team Exfil was a slide through a trash chute into vacuum and a brief. Hot burn that would have boiled them alive if not for suits and math and luck. Their tether to eavesdrop tugged once. They were home. Would sing for them. They did not need songs. On eavesdrop. The quiet tech who had watched the ripple earlier watched her screen now and saw a garden. The seed in the destroyer? The seed in the barge? Small flowers of delay, blooming in lines that passed through the Dreth grid like veins. She did not cheer. She only said, "Admiral, the story is spreading." Cade's mouth moved. It might have been a smile. While ships hunted and ghosts sang, words moved too. The packet Elara Stone had ordered sent at the end of Part 1 kept jumping across relays. Worlds that had bowed watched a human stand and heard a sentence that was simple enough to write on a child's hand. Humans do not kneel in the council hall. A vote had been called and then drowned by panic. Now the speaker raised his staff. Again. His voice was hoarse, but he found it. By emergency motion, he said, we open the floor to immediate aid for Earth. Half the ring shouted no, half shouted yes. Some shouted both. The Aurea King stood. His stone skin showed a new crack down the forearm. He had made it when he had gripped the bench in part 1. He did not hide it. The Dreth broke us when my father sat in this seat. He said, we did not stand. We lived. I do not regret that choice. My daughter breathes because of it. But I will not watch a new world stand alone while I count my breath. If Earth stands, Auric will send steel. The Lix emissary stood too. His long hands trembled. We have mines, he said. We have ore. We will send it without tax. We will send it without registry. We will tell the Dreth it was stolen from us. We will lie proudly. The Elara could do little. They'd only music and small, delicate machines. Mary still stood, shocking herself. Her voice sounded like water on glass. We will send the small machines that find cracks in stones and make them bigger, she said, and her cheeks flushed with color at her own daring. We will send songs that carry messages without wires. We will. We will not kneel while we carry them. I squeezed her hand so hard it hurt, did not tell her to stop. He looked up, and for the first time in years he kept looking up. Not all spoke. Some shrank deeper. Some sneered. Some calculated. Empires do not shift in a day. But a few stones moved. When the rains come, a few stones are enough to start a slide. General Varg Tell felt the fight tilt. It was not defeat. It was not victory. It was that uncomfortable middle ground where the enemy has found your ribs. Turned to crush the hand that reached there. Bring the reserve net online, he snapped. We will bypass the barge. Direct orders to squadron leads. His comms officer nodded. Yes, General. Tried. He failed. He tried again, sweat under his armor. General, he said in a very small voice. The reserve net is unclean. Explain. There is a worm. Varg Tell's eyes narrowed. A worm, he repeated, as if the word was a personal insult. Yes, General. A code thing. It hides inside the timing. It answers to certain tones, not ours. Who's theirs? Varg Tell did not shout. He did not rage. His teachers had taught him that fury is fit for feasts, not for war rooms. He looked at the field with colder eyes than before. Purge it. We are trying. The officer's board showed green. Again it lied. The worm did not live in a place boards could see. It lived in little dances between clocks. Lived in the spaces humans had learned to live in. Between, under, around. Varg Tell understood something then that he had not wanted to understand. The humans were not only brave, they were not only stubborn. They were clever in a way that made empires nervous. They had crawled into the empire's nervous system and put fingers on the signals. He looked at the feet of the council because he knew they were watching, and he spoke so the watching worlds would hear. You think you have tricked us, he said. You think you have found a game that breaks kings? Hear me, lesser stars. Games end when the board burns. He made a gesture. A gunship wing peeled away and drove hard for the Mars domes, ignoring the fleet fight. He would show the galaxy. Smoke. Smoke is an argument. Admiral Cade saw the wing turn. Vanguard 6, he said on the quiet beam. Cut them off. No reply. On the scope, a small nothing in the dark slid like a shadow crossing a fire. It did not fire weapons. It rolled. And a cloud of finned cylinders spilled from its belly. They were mines with small brains. They were not set to kill. They were set to confuse. They threw mirrors into the gunship wing's eyes. Left looked like right. Down looked like up. The wing lost 20 seconds reorienting. 20 seconds is. A door human interceptors roared out of the dark and met the wing at the door. The interceptors were old, were patched with prayers. They fought like people who had no place else to go. The door shut. Cade exhaled through his nose. Good. Hunting, he said to no one but the dark. A new ripple ran across the human boards. Drops Tech leaned forward. The seed nodes in the destroyer and the barge had begun to speak to each other. They were not meant to. Humans had told them to anyway. A short phrase appeared on Cade's private channel. It was not text. It was a short pattern of tones. 3. Slow to fast. 1 held. It was a key. Cade tapped the reply on the rail with 2 knuckles. Go. In the Dreth flagship's command bay, a side display flickered. It showed a packet from the High War Throne far away. Status check. Routine. Boring. The comms officer opened it to log the reply. Inside the packet, tucked into the fold of a checksum, was a human ghost. It did not shout. It did not erase. It did the one thing that proud empires rarely guard against, because they do not believe anyone would dare. It watched. It learned. For a few heartbeats, human eyes looked through the Dreth's own window at their command routes, their fallback codes, their panic words. On eavesdrop, 4 people held their breath. The ghost slipped back with what it could carry in its teeth. The window shut. Varg Tell never knew it had opened. The data came to Cade in the form of distances and delays, not secrets about names or thrones. It was enough. It told him where. Orders went first. It told him where to pinch to make them go last. It told him which line officer was calm and which shouted too much and sent sloppy signals. Cade had learned long ago that a sloppy enemy makes big targets. Commander Vance said, "Nudge Beta Line 17. Gently Vance's fingers danced. A nudge is a polite word for a knife under a rib. The Beta Line turned late. A human. Frigates survived that would have died. A Dreth corvette died that would have lived. No feed ever told that story. The Board of Fate kept it written in small ink in the corner, in the black above the blue world that would be the heart of the coming war. Sable finished her hunt at the destroyer and let go. The boarders slid home, breathing small, making no sound. As they came through the lock, one of them paused and ran a gloved hand over the inner frame. It was a simple human habit, like tapping a doorway before leaving a house that had been kind. And cruel Captain Anna Rutledge met them with a nod. "You left gifts," she said. "Little ones," the leader said. "To trip big feet." Rutledge almost smiled. "Good eat. Sleep. Dream of being mistakes no one catches." On the bridge, Sable's comes chirped once. A high, clear chirp like a bird in winter. "Admiral on tight beam?" The comms officer said. Cade's voice came cool through the soft static. "Sable, low sun, eavesdrop. The council is moving. Some with us, some against. None quiet. You did? Good work. Now we will make the Dreth admit we exist." "How?" Rutledge asked. "By telling them the truth," Cade said. "Their net is not safe. Their orders are not private. They fight a shadow, and the shadow has a face." He cut the beam. The plan went out in other tones, through other mouths in pieces. No single capture could tell it whole. The way humans liked plans when giants walked. On the Dreth flagship, alarms began to chime in, a key the crew had never heard. Not the key for fires, not the key for punctures, a new key, a bad key. The comms officer stared at his board. Words crawled across it that were not in their font. They said, "We see you then." For 3 seconds, every Dreth ship in the Mars battlespace heard the same thing on their command net. A woman's calm voice, speaking clear, simple, basic, this. "Is Commander Elara Stone of Earth?" the voice said. "We told you in the council hall. We tell you now where your soldiers can hear it. Your orders are not safe. Your throne is not safe. You cannot teach us to kneel. We learned to stand where? It was hardest. We will stand here. We invite you to learn." The message ended. Silence fell like a dropped curtain. General Varg Tell did not roar. He did not strike his officer. He lifted his hand and closed it slowly, as if he were crushing a small, invisible thing. "Find her ghost," he said. The words were a promise. "Tear it out. Bring me the name of the hand that touched our net. Find the human stone and break it." On the human dome, Admiral Cade looked up at the blue world on his screen and felt, for the first time since the alarm over Mars, a small, slow breath moved through his chest without knives in it. "They heard us," said. "They will come for us," Vance said. "They already were," Cade answered. Now they come angry. Angry makes mistakes." On the council ring, the Elara Mary pressed her palms together, and whispered a word not used on her world in years. "Stand," she said. In the black, the three stealth ships turned their masks a little thicker and slid deeper into the night. The Dreth sent sweeps and snarls and knives into the dark. None found purchase. Not yet, because the truth was out now, recorded on 1,000 feeds. Whispered in 1,000 kitchens, scraped into 1,000 workbench tops with dull knives. The Dreth were not gods. They were only loud, and in their loudness they had not noticed that the shadows around them had weight and hands, and a mouth that could speak in their ear. The chamber of the Galactic Council was no longer calm. The silence from before had shattered. Now the air shook with noise-angry shouts, frightened cries, the clanging of staffs on stone. Delegates who once hid their faces now argued with one another in full view of the Dreth. It was as if one human voice had cut through centuries of fear and split the room wide open. The great dome above them glowed with the light of the star beyond. But no one looked at the star. Every eye was on the central platform where General Varg Tell of the Dreth stood, his armor lit with blood-red seams. At his feet stood Commander Elara Stone of Earth. She was unarmed. She had no guards. Her field jacket looked almost plain compared to the silk, crystal, and gold around her. But she had done what no one else had done. She had stood. She had refused to kneel, and her words, "Humans do not kneel," still burned in the air. The hook came not from what she had said, but from what followed. Because in the far black above Mars, a Dreth warship had just torn itself. Apart from the inside, a silent strike, a shadow's bite. And across the Council's feeds, billions of alien eyes had seen it happen. Now, Varg Tell's patience was ending. He raised one clawed hand. The sound of the chamber fell still, not by the speaker's staff, but by fear of what he would say. His voice was like iron dragged over stone. "You will regret this, human, you and all your kind. Your world will be erased, not enslaved. We'll leave no ruins, no graves, no songs, only silence." The words fell heavy. The Council trembled. Even those who had dared whisper support for Earth shrank back now, her courage snuffed out by the calm cruelty of the decree. Elara did not move. She did not flinch. Her eyes locked on the general, steady, unbroken. She thought of the blue seas of her homeworld, of the forests that still smelled of rain, of the cities where children laughed even under the shadow of war. She thought of the promise she had made to stand, no matter what. She said nothing. She did not need to. Her silence was louder than the shouting in the chamber, and then the speaker, his silver throat trembling, turned to the Dreth. "General Varg," he said, "the Council begs restraint," but his words were drowned out by the sound of the chamber doors. It groaned as they opened again. Guards turned. Delegates twisted in their seats. Two figures were dragged inside. The first was tall, with forearms bound in glowing bands of energy. His scales were cracked and blackened with burns. His eyes burned with fury, but not at Elara. He was Dreth. A commander. The second was a human. A man with close-cropped dark hair, blood crusted at his temple, a limp in his stride. He was not supposed to be here. He had been captured. He had been shackled in the Dreth brig. He was supposed to be broken. It was Captain Jack Hartman. The guards shoved him forward. Shackles glowed at his wrists. Stumbled, caught himself, and stood tall. His lips twisted into a grin, not polite but sharp. A wave of gasps rolled through the Council. Delegates whispered his name as if it were a forbidden spell. Varg Tell's eyes narrowed. "You." Jack tilted his head, wiping blood from his cheek, with the back of his bound hands. "Miss me, Admiral?" "You were to kneel at my feet," Varg said. "You were to be my proof to these lesser species that humans are nothing." Jack's grin widened. "Guess you don't know us very well." The guard shoved Jack toward the platform. He stumbled, then suddenly twisted. The shackles at his wrists shattered like brittle glass. The energy bands sparked and died. The guards froze. Their claws still clutching the empty air were his. Arms had been Jack, moved before anyone could breathe. One leap carried him onto the Council's central table. The silver surface rang under his boots like a war drum. His shoulders rolled forward, his fist clenched. His eyes gleamed with something dangerous, something ancient, something no Dreth had ever seen before. Delegates recoiled. Some fell back in their seats. Some hid their eyes. "This cannot be," hissed Varg. "Your kind was weighed and measured. You were weak. You were meant to be slaves." Jack crouched low, muscles coiled like steel cables. His voice carried. Across the chamber, low, harsh, certain, "You aliens never learned rule number 1 about humans." He cracked his knuckles. The sound echoed off the dome like breaking bones. "We don't," Jack said, his grin cold. "Surrender." The council froze. The Elara gasped. The Lick's emissary pressed his scaled hands to his face as if to hide tears. The Auric king rose to his feet, stone shoulders trembling. General Varg's jaw flexed. His hand hovered near his weapon. His officers waited. The guards hesitated, their eyes on the man who should have been broken but was not, Elara Stone's. Eyes found Jack's. For a heartbeat, she said nothing. Then she gave the smallest nod. Jack understood. Even as the chamber shook with silence, messages spread beyond it. The council's feeds carried the words to every corner of the galaxy. On a mining moon of the Licks, a worker watched on a cracked screen. When he saw the humans stand and shout, he dropped his tool, lifted his head and whispered, "We do not kneel." His voice shook, but it did not stop. Others heard him. Others repeated it. On the water world of the Elara, a child with glass-blue skin repeated the humans' words as if they were a song. Her parents hushed her, but the word hung in the air like a spark. On the icy stations of the Quor, chained miners paused in their work.
Ow!
The overseer shouted at them to keep moving. For the first time in decades, the miners did not answer. Stood still, the galaxy had lived in silence for so long that it had forgotten how loud defiance could be. Humanity had reminded them. Now the echo was spreading. While Jack stood tall on the council's table, the Ghost Division still crept. Inside the bones of the Dreth fleet, Holoquin's team slid through another service shaft. It moved like water in stone cracks, slow, patient, stoppable. Inside the Dreth ship, engineers tried to purge the human worm, but the worm was not a line of code. It was a network of seeds, each singing to the others. Cut one, and two more sang louder. Delays spread like a sickness. Orders arrived late. Doors failed to seal. Guns turned, but did not fire. On the human side, Eavesdrop's crew watched the ripples spread. The tech with the quiet eyes whispered, "They are unraveling." Admiral Cade leaned closer to the screen. "Not yet," he said. "They are wounded. Wounded predators are most dangerous. We must cut the chain." "The chain?" Vance asked. "Their command line," Cade said. "One head, 1,000 claws. Break the head, the claws are just hands in the dark." On the council floor, the captured Dreth commander groaned, his burned scales flaking. Elara looked down at him. "You led the attack on Dymas," she said. "You thought we would bow because you burned a fishing outpost. You thought we would kneel while you cut our children in front of us?" The commander snarled, but his eyes darted away. For the first time, the council saw a Dreth officer look not like a god, but like a man caught in a lie. Elara raised her voice so all could hear. "You think you are alone in pain? You think only you have lost homes? Look around this hall. Every species here has graves they never wanted. Every world has scars, and yet you demand more." The Aurea king stood again. His stone voice rumbled. "She speaks true. My father bent his knees. I did too. I thought I had no choice. But if Earth can stand, then so can we." He tore the crest from his chest plate and let it fall to the floor with a sound like a bell. "Auric will not send tribute." Gasps filled. The chamber, the Lick's emissary, rose. "We will not ship, or," he said, "if humans will stand, we will stand with them." Mary, the young Elara, stood on trembling legs. Her skin glowed faint blue. "We will not sing for the Dreth. We will sing for ourselves." Her elders pulled her back, but the words were out. They were recorded. They were already spreading. General Varg turned slowly to the council ring. His voice was colder than the void. "Every chain must break," he said. "So be it. We are finished, there will be no chains left, because there will be no one left to wear them. On the flagship, alarm screamed. The Dreth officer at comms looked up, his face pale, even under scales. "General," he whispered, "the command net. It is gone." "Gone?" Yeah. Varg asked. "Gone," the officer said, his voice cracking. "Orders vanish. Ships drift. They do not answer. The chain is broken. On the Council's display, half the Dreth fleet wavered. Their formations sagged. Their guns spun, with no target. Elara's voice rang again, quiet but sharp. "You cannot rule those who will not listen. You cannot hold chains when your hands are open." Varg bared his teeth. His claws curled. "Then we will not hold them." He growled. "We will burn them. All of them. Begin the cleansing fire. Aim for Earth." The order went out. 100 Dreth cannons began to glow, gathering suns inside their throats. The chamber fell silent again. The galaxy held its breath. The people of Earth had always looked up at the night sky with wonder. They had once seen it as endless possibility, distant. Suns that promised adventure, planets waiting to be explored, new friends waiting to be met. But on this night, those same skies turned against them. They were not filled with stars. They were filled with war. 1,000 Dreth warships pressed into soul space. Each one the size of a mountain, each one bristling with weapons that could split a continent. They poured out of hyperspace near the edge of the system, their drives, leaving scars of red light across the void. They moved like a tide black iron against the stars, crushing every orbiting station that dared to signal Earth for help. On Earth itself, the world was chaos. Cities pulsed with fear. Sirens blared across the continents. Screens in every home and market showed the live feeds from the Galactic Council and from Mars orbit. People saw the Dreth warships, vast as islands, filling the sky above their colonies. They saw fire rain down on Mars's moons. They saw Commander Elara Stone standing on the council floor. Her head high, her voice calm, saying the words no one expected, "Humans do not kneel." And they saw the answer. They heard the Dreth general vow, before all the galaxy, that Earth would be erased. The warning came too late for some. In the fishing villages of Alaska, children watched the auroras above them turn blood red. Parents pulled them inside. The air itself began to hum. Satellites caught the swelling light in orbit as the Dreth planet killer prepared to fire in Beijing. In Lagos, in Snow Paulo, in Karachi, the news anchors shouted over each other. Impact in 2 hours, 1 shot, 1 planet, no defense. Can hold. The words echoed through millions of homes like funeral bells. On the streets, people panicked. Markets were stripped bare. Cars jammed highways. Some fell to their knees, hands clasped, praying to gods they had not spoken to in years. Some raged at the sky, shaking fists at the stars. Some simply sat in silence, eyes wide, waiting for fire. But in the tunnels of Luna Base, there was no panic. There was no time. Admiral Jonas Cade stood in the command chamber, his eyes locked on the massive weapon that sat deep inside the Luna rock. It was not sleek. It was not beautiful. It was ugly, brutal, raw. A colossal coil of metal and magnetics. A cannon that had been built in secret for decades under mountains of gray stone. It was not a weapon of pride. It was a weapon of survival. The lunar aegis, they called it. It's the cannon that could fire the energy of a collapsed star in a single beam. Enough power to tear through even the armored hearts of the Dreth. Enough power to change the war. Status? Cade asked. "Charging, Admiral," replied Chief Engineer Morrow, sweat running down his temple, despite the cold. 3 minutes until full capacity. 3 minutes. It might as well have been 3 years. The Dreth were moving. Their wedge was breaking apart, but not retreating. No, they were shifting, pulling back their forward line and forming a burning spear. The spear pointed at Earth, and at its tip was a weapon unlike anything seen before, a planet killer. A cannon that made even suns look pale. The feed caught it. Every council seat watched the glowing sphere of energy building inside the massive Dreth ship. It was like a false star, growing brighter, hotter, till the dome's glass dimmed to protect the delegates' eyes. The speaker's silver throat trembled. General Varg, the council forbids Varg tell, raised a claw. The speaker's words died. This is the price of defiance, the general said. Watch your new champions burn. On the deck of the intrepid Captain Jack Hartman strapped into his fighter. His body ached from bruises, his wrists still red from broken shackles, but his eyes were fire. Round him, his squadron prepared. Listen up, he said into the combs. His voice carried steady, hard, sure. They're aiming. For Earth, they think they can erase us with one shot. They think we'll scatter and beg. They're wrong. We'll dive into their teeth. We'll hit them until the Aegis fires. A silence followed. Then voices answered, one by one. With you, Captain, never kneel till the last breath. Engines screamed. The intrepid squadron plunged forward. They did not fly. In neat lines. They moved like sparks, like shards of glass in a storm. The Dreth spear roared forward, guns blazing. Plasma bolts tore through the void. The humans wove between them, darting close, firing torpedoes, tearing at weak spots in armor. A Dreth frigate shuddered, cracked, and spun away. A second followed, but the cost was high. A fighter went up in white flame. Then another. Each time the combs went silent for one more voice. Jack felt each silence like a knife between his ribs, but he did not let the pain show. Keep them busy, shouted. Make them look at us. Make them chase us. The Aegis needs minutes, Will. Give them hours if we have to. The squadron roared their answer. On Earth, billions watched the battle unfold. Cities dimmed lights to hide from orbit. Families huddled in basements. Soldiers manned orbital. Cannons that looked small as toys beside Dreth warships. In New York, crowds gathered in Times Square, eyes locked on the giant screens. The planet killer's glow filled the sky on the feed. It looked like dawn coming too soon. In Cairo, an old man stood on his roof and whispered the words again. Humans do not kneel. His neighbors heard. They whispered too. The word spread like sparks through dry grass. On Luna, General Cade heard the engineers shout. 1 minute to charge. The lunar Aegis roared in its chamber, the coils glowing white-hot, the air trembling. The floor itself shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Cade looked at Vance. When it fires, the Dreth will know. They already know, she said softly. That's why they're aiming everything at us. On the Dreth flagship, General. Varg watched the planet killer's glow swell. It was a sun now. His officers looked at it with awe. Their faces shone red. On my word, Varg said, his voice like iron. We burn their world. Take their sky from them. Let them learn. Silence. But then his ship shuddered. Not from outside, from inside. Report. He roared. The comms officer's hands flew across the slate. General, the primary cannon is unstable. The energy flow is being redirected. Redirected? By whom? The officer swallowed. Screen blinked. By us. Our own commands. They are being rewritten. Varg turned slowly. His eyes blazed. By who? The officer's voice cracked. By the ghosts. The Dreth general slammed his fist down, cracking the console. On the feed, the planet killer's glow flickered. The false sun sputtered. Then, with a roar that shook the void, the entire ship tore itself apart. A chain of explosions raced down its spine. Light swallowed the darkness. When it cleared, nothing remained but drifting fire. The Dreth spear. Faltered, the humans did not cheer. They had no time. Another line of Dreth ships was already moving forward. On Earth, the people screamed with joy. The planet killer was gone. Children hugged parents. Strangers embraced. For a moment, there was laughter instead of fear. But inside the Dreth flagship, General Varg was not broken. His eyes were ice. His voice was calm. They have cut one chain, he said. We have 1,000 more. If they will not kneel, they will drown in their own courage. He raised his claw. The chamber of the council filled again with silence. All ships, he ordered. Concentrate fire on the lunar weapon. Burn it. Burn the humans. Burn their world. Burn them all. The Dreth ships shifted. Their guns glowed brighter, hotter, red as a dying sun. The void itself seemed to tremble. On Luna, alarms screamed. The lunar aegis was still charging. 2 minutes left. The base shook with the vibration of the enemy's power. Engineers shouted over the roar. Sparks fell from the ceiling, Captain. Jack Hartman's squadron was already diving back into the storm, their ships battered, shields flickering, weapons hot. Jack's voice cut across the net. It was steady, calm, human. 2 minutes, he said. That's all we need. 2 minutes. And we show them what standing means. The screen lit up with red. The first wave of the Dreth spear fired. The sky above Earth turned to fire. The sky over Earth was on fire. Great rivers of red plasma carved across the heavens as the Dreth unleashed their fury. People across the planet could see it. From the deserts of Africa to the towers of New York, from the ice cliffs of Antarctica to the jungles of South America, the night lit up with streaks of burning light that turned clouds into blood. Sirens wailed. Families huddled underground. Soldiers strapped themselves into bunkers and whispered to each other that they would fight to the last on the darkness of the lunar caverns. The lunar aegis cannon screamed as its coils charged. The air inside the chamber shimmered from heat. Sparks rained from cables stretched across the ceiling. Engineers worked with their gloves, smoking, hands shaking but never stopping. 2 minutes. Chief Engineer Morrow shouted over the roar of the generators. His face was slick with sweat, his hair plastered to his forehead. We need 2 more minutes to reach full charge. Admiral Jonas Cade stood at the command table, eyes locked on the tactical map. The red icons of the Dreth spear pressed. Closer, their planet killer destroyed, but their fury doubled. They were no longer fighting with cold precision. They were burning everything, even their own, just to strike Earth. Beside Cade, Commander Lyra, Vance whispered, "If that cannon fires before we're ready." She didn't finish. She didn't need to. Cade's jaw tightened. He pressed his hand flat against the cold surface of the table, grounding himself. We don't get to choose when they fire. You only get to choose how long we stand. Intrepid, Captain Jack Hartman sat in his battered fighter. His helmet was cracked but patched. His hands were raw from the fight aboard the Dreth flagship. Round him his squadron floated in formation, only a handful left. Listen up, Jack said on the open come. His voice was steady, though his throat burned. Admiral Graves needs time. Earth needs time. We're going to buy it. How? One pilot asked, coughing into his mic. We can't stop that many guns. We can't stop 1,000. Jack's eyes narrowed. His grin was sharp and cold. We don't need to stop them all. We just need to make them angry enough to look at us, not at Earth. We'll be the bait. We'll be the fire they chase. We'll hold them here until the Aegis wakes. Silence fell for a moment. Then one by one voices rose. With you, Captain. Till the end, humans don't kneel. Jack pulled the throttle forward. His fighter leapt into the storm. His squadron followed. The first 5 minutes of the battle were chaos. Dreth cannons tore the dark apart. Their beams cut through void like burning spears. Human fighters dove between them, weaving through gaps so small that no alien pilot would have dared. Jack's fighter twisted like a thrown blade, slipping between 2 beams that should have sliced him in half. He felt heat crawl up his spine, but he did not flinch. A human bomber pushed straight into a line of Dreth frigates. Plasma shells slammed into its hull. Fire trailed behind it. But it did not fall. At the last second, it broke open, releasing a cloud of drones. The drones swarmed like wasps, stabbing into the frigate's engines, ripping wires, burning circuits. The frigates spun apart, colliding with one another in fire. In the council chamber, the feeds showed it all. Delegates stared with wide eyes. Some cheered openly, some wept. Some still hid their faces, afraid to believe. On the council floor, the Auric king leaned forward. They do not fight to survive, he whispered. They fight to buy time. Mary? Of the Elara nodded, her glass-like skin glowing. They fight so Earth may live. They fight like we once dreamed we could. But it was not only the fighters that held the death single quotes. Are you... Deep inside the Dreth fleet, the Ghost Division moved again. Harlequin and her team had already planted 2 worms. Now they crept through the ducts of a command frigate for humans. In cold suits, breath shallow, hearts pounding, every step was a risk. The Dreth ship was alive with sensors, with guards, with watchful eyes, but humans had grown on a death world. They had learned to live in cracks, in shadows, in places no one expected life to cling. The team reached the core of the frigate, a room full of glowing conduits and humming crystals. Dreth engineers walked between them, their armor shining red dot. HALA whispered into her mic. We do it quiet. 1 breath, 1 strike. 1 psalm, the team slid from the duct. Silent, efficient. Blades cut wires, devices clicked into place. A guard turned, eyes narrowing, then a human hand closed around his throat, pulling him into shadow before he could shout. His weapon clattered softly against the floor. Within minutes, the frigate's command core was a maze of dark screens and smoking wires. The ghost slipped back into the ducts before alarms could even sound. On the eavesdrop, the tech watched her board. A new ripple bloomed. The Dreth-S commands slowed further. Their spear began to wobble. Their fire no longer struck true. On the flagship, General Vargtel stood unmoving, but inside his armor, his claws dug into his palms. He saw his spear stumble. He saw his cruiser die from within. He saw his orders slowed, twisted, delayed. His officers shouted for answers. His comms officer stammered. The humans, Varg said softly, are inside us. The officers fell silent. Even they felt it, now that they were being watched, that their own systems whispered to unseen ears. Purge. The Netvarg ordered. Purge it all. We fight blind, but we fight with rage. Rage does not need maps. Rage does not need eyes. The order spread. Dreth ships roared forward, their weapons glowing. Plasma beams swept the void, wide arcs of fire that burned everything. They touched. They struck their own wreckage, tore their own escorts apart. But they kept firing, kept advancing, kept burning. Back in Luna Base, the countdown ticked. 1 minute, Morrow shouted, voice hoarse. 1 minute until the Aegis is charged. The chamber shook again. Dust fell in streams. Panels cracked. Lights flickered. Cade gripped the rail. He had one thought. We will hold. We must hold. He opened a channel to the Intrepid. Jack, he said, the cannon needs more time. 3 minutes. On the Intrepid's bridge, Jack's hands clenched. The controls. His fighter shook with every hit. Warning lights flared. Half his squadron was gone. The others burned, their voices thin with pain, but steady with resolve. 3 minutes, he said. That's what we need, Cade said. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. Can you give it to me? Jack looked around at the faces of his surviving crew. They were pale. Their eyes were wide. But one by one they nodded. Double quotes. We can give you 3 minutes, Jack said. But it'll be the last 3 minutes we've got. Cade's jaw tightened. Jack, don't argue, Admiral, Jack said. His grin was sharp, fierce. You heard Elara. Humans don't kneel. We're going to show them what that means. Do you... Cut the channel, squadron, Jack said. We dive into the heart of their spear. We hit them where it hurts. Engines, joints, bridges. We make them look at us. Make them forget Earth even exists. His fighter's engines roared. He pulled the throttle forward. The squadron followed. The Dreth spear burned bright in front of them. A wall of iron and fire. Plasma cannons lit the void. Missile trails curved like white scars. The humans dove straight at it. The first wave of enemy fire came. Jack rolled. His fighter slipped between beams, felt the heat brush past his hull. Behind him, one of his pilots was not so lucky. A flash of light. Silence on the come. Keep flying, Jack shouted. Keep standing. Every second we live is a second they don't own. His words hit the squadron like a hammer. They roared their answer and dove deeper. The council feeds showed the insane charge. Aliens gasped. Some could not watch. Others could not look away. It was madness. It was suicide. It was human. In the heart of the Dreathspear, the Ghost Division made their move. Holoquin's team reached the command hub of the central battleship. Alarms screamed all around them, but here in the ducts it was quiet. They moved like shadows, hands steady, breath slow. They set the final device. Hummed once. On Eavesdrop's board, a new signal flashed. The tech whispered, "They are ready." Admiral Cade looked at the chrono. 30 seconds left until the Aegis charged. 30 seconds of holding. 30 seconds of blood. On the intrepid Jack's fighter shook with another hit. His vision blurred. His cum filled with static and screams. Captain, one of his pilots said, voice thin, "We can't." Hold, then the cum went silent. Jack's grip tightened. He forced his fighter forward, deeper into the storm. Into the heart of the Dreathspear. On the Dreth flagship, Varg's cum's officer shouted, "General, the central battleship, its shields are gone. Its engines are locked." Varg turned, his eyes blazing. On Luna, Morrow screamed, "Cannon is ready. Fire." The chamber shook with a roar like the tearing of the sky. A beam of pure white light burst from the heart of the moon. It shot across the void, straight toward the Dreathspear. The council gasped. The galaxy leaned forward. The beam struck. The beam from the moon did not look like light. It looked like a decision. It left the lunar Aegis as a white line too bright for cameras, a spear that turned vacuum into wind and made dust lift from dead rock. In orbit, shattered hulls spun away as if pulled by a tide. On Earth, every city square and farmhouse, every subway and mountain road glowed for an instant as the sky became a blade. It crossed the void in a breath. It hit the heart of the Dreathspear. For one long second, nothing happened. Then the world changed. The first battleship took the beam on its spine. Armor rated for suns became steam. Ribs of metal glowed, sagged, and vanished. The beam did not stop. It cored the ship, bored a tunnel of day through night, and carved on. The second ship bloomed like a white flower and fell apart petal by petal. The third went dark as if a hand had pinched its star. Shock waves raced ahead of the light. Dreth formations buckled, turned, and broke. The spear that pointed at Earth lost its point. It became a cloud of fire. On Luna, the cannon's coils screamed. Engineers slammed emergency vents open. Superheated air roared out of the mountain like a dragon's breath. Chief Morrow sagged against a rail, laughing and sobbing at once. "Hit," he choked. "Direct hit." The command deck, Admiral Jonas Cade, did not smile. He watched the red icons die in the space where they had been. Then he spoke quietly, as if not to wake a sleeping thing. "Cool the coils," he said. "Start recharge. We will need another shot." Commander Lyra Vance wiped a sleeve across her face and nodded. "Aye, Admiral." Above, in the storm, Captain Jack Hartman felt the shock wash his fighter like a hot wind. His HUD flared white. Then the glare faded and the field resolved. Where the spear had been was wreckage and boiling plasma. Where the planet killer had been was empty night. His breath came back in a ragged laugh. "That's it," he whispered. "That's it, Captain," a pilot croaked on the net. I've got nothing left." "You've got one thing," Jack said. "The way home. Take it." He turned his beaten craft toward the densest cluster of living Dreth. Guns, he still had work. He still had seconds to buy. In the Galactic Council, the feed lagged by moments, but that did not blunt it. Delegates in 100 shapes saw the beam. Some covered their eyes. Some fell to their knees, not in surrender, but in something like awe. The speaker's silver throat trembled. The Oriate King laughed once, a sound like a stone rolling free down a cliff. The Elara girl. Mary clutched Taeon's hand until his glass skin creaked. "They did it," she whispered. They did not bow. Taeon found that he could not stop looking up. On the Dreth flagship, General Vargtel stood like a statue in a red storm. His officers shouted numbers and losses. One reached toward Him and then thought better of it. Varg's eyes were narrow slits of black. So, he said softly, to himself more than to them. He built a hammer. He turned his head toward the window and the blue world beyond it. Then we will learn to break hammers. He lifted one claw. All lines forward. Close the range. Flood the moon with fire. Kill their cannon. Kill their faith. Guns spat. Fire crossed fire. The sky over Earth burned again. The beam did more than cut ships. It cut the story. For years, the Dreth story had been simple. We come, you kneel, we leave a flag. Worlds repeated it until it became a lullaby for the frightened. Industry bent to it. Law bent to it. The council's floor bent to it. Now a new line had been spoken with light. Stand, on the mining moon in the licks, Syndic. Workers tore the Dreth crest from a smelter and kicked it into slag. On the Oriat capital, soldiers threw their tribute, ledgers into a brazier and let the ash blow over the city. In back rooms on trading stations, small men with quick eyes passed crates marked machine parts that weighed like rifles. The Elara sent little boxes no bigger than a palm, full of devices that listened to walls and found cracks inside them. None of this won a war. All of it changed one. Status? Ghost Division. Admiral Cade asked. On the covert ship Eavesdrop. The quiet tech lifted her eyes from a field of numbers that were beginning to make a map in her head. Their reserve net is still blind in 3 corridors, she said. Our seeds are singing. Allah's team is off the barge and moving 4. The relay. Relay first, Cade said. Then the throne route. Vance blinked. The throne route. Cade's mouth tilted. The Dreth High War Throne keeps a private band for direct orders. We know its timing now. If the ghosts can stain it just a little, we make every decree wobble. Vance looked at the Red Sea on the main board. Even a wobble would. Be a gift. Humans don't wait for gifts, Cade said. We make them. On low sun, Halaquin and her team floated in a black tube so narrow their suits scraped the sides. Their breath fogged their visors in small blossoms. Their packs hummed very softly, like bees in winter. Ahead, a faint circle of not quite dark marked a service grate. 10 seconds. Hala breathed. 10, Ivo echoed. They counted down in their heads. Human math, human patience. At 1, Hala pressed 2 teeth together. A tiny cutter in her glove whispered. The grate's lock fell apart like sugar in warm water. They slid through into a little lung of space behind the relay's heart. The Dreth had built their relay with pride. Pride leaves corners. Hala slid a wafer the size of a nail into a seam where 2 plates met and tapped it once. Blew, then died. Not broken, sleeping in plain sight, waiting for a tone no Dreth would ever play. First gift, Hala said. Next, Ivo said, and they moved in the council. The speaker banged his staff and found that order came more easily than before. Fear makes noise. Courage listens. By emergency motion, he said, aid convoys will launch under council protection. We will not sanction fire, but we will not sanction famine either. 30 seats protested. 20 shouted for more. 10 shouted for less. But ships began to load. That was enough. The Oria King stood again. We will escort them, he rumbled. Our stone is old. It still breaks teeth. The Lick's emissary lifted his long hands. Our syndics will cover the bills. Our clerks will call it theft. We will call it price. Mary of the Elara looked very small when she stood, but her voice carried like a clear bell. We will sing roots that do not exist, she said. So Dreth eyes do not see what moves. Teon squeezed her arm. Careful. She nodded without looking at him. Careful and brave. General Vargtel glanced once toward the feed. Of the counselor, contemptuous flick of a predator's gaze and dismissed it. Councils did not concern him. Power did. Push, he told his fleet. Don't think push, they did. The lunar aegis screamed toward a second charge. Human. Pickets died in lines of brief light. The shield belt over Earth flickered and held, flickered and failed, flickered and held again. Admiral, Bond said, If they reach the surface batteries, they won't, Cade said. Jack, still here? Came the answer through. Static and grit. Jack Hartman's fighter had a cracked canopy and one engine that coughed like an old dog. He flew it as if it were new. He cut across the path of a Dreth gunship and loosed his last 2 torpedoes without a targeting lock. They walked left because he knew the pilot would dodge right. The gunship's nose tore away. It spun, hit a friend, and both went into night as 2 red coins. Jack Cade said quietly, "You've done enough." "Not yet," Jack said. "One more door to hold." He took his little ship in front of a cluster of Luna-bound beams, and jinked and rolled until 3 missed him, and the 4th did not. His board went dark. The cockpit filled with hot smoke. He did not curse. He grinned through it, because his last thought was of a sentence he had heard in a stone hall. Humans do not kneel. His ship became a brief white flower in the sky. On the council's ring, the Oria king bowed his head. The Lix emissary closed. His eyes, Mary whispered, "Thank you," and did not know who she was thanking. The speaker's hands shook on his staff. Cade stood very still for a long heartbeat. Then he put one finger on the glass and moved the fleet again. "Recharge at 60%, Vance said through clenched teeth. 70, Cade said. When the second shot came, it came lower. It skimmed the tops of cloud and turned them into boiling milk. It shaved a ring of molten metal off a Dreth cruiser's belly and left a glowing wound that would never cool. It speared a carrier and hammered 3 escorts into bright dust. It broke the back of the line that had started to climb over the moon's shadow toward the cannon's throat. The Dreth did not stop. They could not. Rage has no break. Third cycle, Morrow barked, wild-eyed hair standing with charge. "We can do 3. After that, the coils will melt and take us with them." 3 is all the war gives anyone, Cade said. "Ate it." Above Sable and Low Sun, an eavesdrop drifted through wreckage like thoughts through a bad dream. Anna Rutledge watched flames coil around plates and caught herself thinking of campfires on Earth. The way would sighs when it gives up to heat.